everyone. I'm Elizabeth Hines, and welcome back to Coast Connections from beautiful Bowser, BC, here in Lighthouse Country. Today on our episode, we're here to honor the humpback whales. And we're going to be heading 300 kilometers north to Port McNeill, where our friend Jackie is joining us from the Marine Education and Research Society. Welcome, Jackie.
Hello, Liz. Wonderful to have this opportunity.
Wonderful to be here to help you honor the humpback whales and teach us what we need to learn about these beautiful giants who have made quite a sudden return to our waters. We're so lucky to have them back, but we need to learn how to live with them and educate ourselves about how to protect them.
So very true, and really why it is so valuable to us to have the opportunity to reach even more people. Humpback researcher, marine educator, I would like nothing more than to be knowing who the whales are, studying their feeding. Yeah, this has already been going on for me personally for 20 years. However, the need to educate boaters and coastal British Columbians generally is huge because the return of humpbacks was so sudden. We used to whale them right up to 1966, so within your and my lifetimes. And then really, in my personal involvement, when I really started identifying them as individuals, so incidentally prior to 2003, but in our core study area, which is northeastern Vancouver Island around Telegraph Cove, in all of 2003, we documented only 7 individual humpbacks, not together, in the entire year. Last year, it was 93 in exactly the same area. So we use that as our measure because there's been consistent effort there. So this return, because we're not killing them anymore, but there's also some sort of shift from somewhere else that none of we researchers all along the coast of the North Pacific have figured out yet. And because they're so big, because they're so very different than the whales that most boaters have defaulted to, thinking that orca are the proxy for all whales, so what orca do is what other whales do, is extremely problematic, not just for the whales, but very much for human safety and actually material loss as well.
Let's talk a bit about the size of these giants, Jackie. An adult humpback weighs about how many tons?
About 30 tons. So it varies. It's important too that things like gestation period, size, even what they look like to some degree, varies per population. And I find it the best because many of us can't visualize like how big is that. We are talking for adult females, which are bigger than the males, a school bus. So these are school buses. Again, to emphasize then the wonder of who they are, and certainly being highly acrobatic whales, we get a sense of that when they jump out of the water or slap their pectoral fins. They're huge wing-like pectoral fins because they are the only winged whale that's even locked within their scientific name. But we don't get that sense when they suddenly surface that they are actually that big.
And what's the average lifespan of a humpback whale in the wild?
Do not know. We humans,
Okay.
even with the orca that have been studied longer, and humpbacks in other part of the world, it was around the same time, 1973, that only then did we start studying whales as individuals. So we do not know for any population of whale how old they can become. There's some work done on. There's remarkable things like arrowheads found in bowhead whales and earwax studies in those species as well that suggest for them they can get to be 200 or more years old. But it won't even be within my lifetime for these populations off the coast of British Columbia that we have enough data to know life expectancy, because it varies per population as well. But it is at least 50 years old, and I believe it's going to prove to be longer than that.
Wow. Now, Jackie, you're an award-winning photographer. Your work has been featured on PBS and BBC and Animal Planet, and you've provided us today with some really great photos. And also on your website, is it just a treasure trove of amazing photography for viewers to go there as well. Let's pop up this picture of KC. He was born in 2002 to Houdini. It looks like this humpback is breaching here. What a beauty.
Yeah, so Casey I've known since he was a baby. And even his nickname, we now give nicknames for distinctive features, but I could never have known back in 2002 the path that I would be on in terms of education, but how many humpbacks would shift towards the coast as well. So KC, even though he has a distinctive K and C on his tail, and that's why people think we nicknamed him KC, because we want the features of the whale to be a visual clue for the identity, because otherwise I would go crazy trying to figure out who they all are. But KC is for kelp creature, because even as an adult, and these are individuals, KC likes to roll around in bull kelp. It's what he does. He's a whale that is extremely acrobatic. He's even been photographed breaching in front of Campbell River and hits the front of the Campbell River newspaper as a result.
A little media hound.
Yeah, no, thankfully not. Right? Sorry, I may be pushing it too far. Not wanting to anthropomorphize at all. He's a mature male, and contrary, like with the behaviors of the humpbacks, there's so much as well that we humans are misunderstanding in not realizing, for starters, they're not in transit most often when they're in our waters. Yes, some of them proceed on to Alaska, but the humpbacks, like KC, they have favorite fishing spots and they have favorite fishing strategies. So KC, as a mature male, certainly later in the season when it's not just all about feeding, because when the humpbacks come back around the spring, this time of the year, it is about bulking up. What we coastal British Columbians need to realize is these are richer waters than the likes of Hawaii and Mexico and Central America, to which the humpbacks migrate, because the darkness of our water is a viscous plankton soup that then can sustain little fish, and then up and up goes up the food web. So needing to understand the humpbacks in our waters are not on their way most often to somewhere else. You're very likely looking at the same whales in the same privileged piece of coast that we have a look over year upon year upon year. And our research is based on that, where people are delivering these puzzle pieces so that we can get a province-wide and beyond perspective of what the whales are doing. And later in the season, when their bellies are really full, and again, when they migrate, to get a sense of just how little food there is for them in warm water, is the females will lose up to half their body mass if they're nursing in warm water. But once bellies are full, later in the season, the behavior changes a little bit, where they're way more likely to be interacting with one another in a way that suggests that mating is going to happen. So the males, like KC, end up showing competitive behavior. And part of that, there's many reasons that they have all these acrobatic behaviors, truly many reasons. But that is, in KC's case, often when it seems to be that he's more acrobatic.
And you talked about these rich waters and how they feed and what they're feeding on. Talk to us about the baleen that these humpbacks have, which is quite unique to them. And you've got
Yeah,
an amazing graph here, Jackie, that you've taken of the baleen of a humpback that we're looking at here now.
yeah,
And we'll
we're really
also show more
grateful
of that.
the Whale Interpretive Center for that photograph. But indeed, humpbacks and gray whales, minke whales, are the three most commonly cited baleen whales on our coast. So that means that they don't have any teeth at all. They have pieces of baleen, which is like your hair and fingernails. And looking at this, it of course is going to make sense that the shredded part that grows and splits like fingernails does, that's going to be on the inside of the whale's mouth. In the case of humpbacks, and then in many, many, many pieces. And in the case of humpbacks, it has nothing to do with getting food into the whale's mouth. It has everything to do with getting salt water out. They are mammals like us, hence needing to breathe at the surface. But it also means that they can't process salt water.
So
So
are they getting
humpbacks
fresh?
being giant. No,
Are
yeah,
they
they're getting
getting
fresh.
fresh water from the fish
No,
that they're eating and the krill?
all whales, all marine mammals get fresh water through their food. So the fish have done the job of processing the salt water. So truly important in understanding baleen whales is, for starters, they're not going to go around the ocean getting one little fishy, two little fishy, one little krill. It's got to be worth the energy of getting a gigantic mouthful of food. And they have varying strategies in varying places on our coast to do that. But once they have a gigantic mouthful with their throat pleats, in the case of humpbacks, distended to be able to take in these huge volumes, they then have a problem. They've got to get rid of the salt water. Those throat pleats constrict, the tongue creates current, and it's even believed that the Fringes get tangled, forming an even better filter, whereby out goes the salt water, not here, that's their hot breath and the water that was on top of their blowholes. Out it goes, and then they swallow. And of course, what nature is going to do too is if you don't have teeth and you can't break down your food for digestion, you've got to have a way to limit the size of what goes into your stomach. So the throats of baleen whales are only the width of your hand approximately. So not even the birds that are also going after the prey, yeah, can be swallowed unless they're really tiny birds. And then so important to realize is that all baleen whales have two blowholes exposed, two nostrils. Sorry, and toothed whales only have one. That's because toothed whales like orca have the biosonar organ over the second blowhole. And why is this so desperately important? It's because baleen whales don't have biosonar like toothed whales do. Nobody on Earth knows how they find their food. And it means that they can be astoundingly oblivious of boats, especially if they're so directed at feeding and when they're resting.
Unbelievable. Their behavior is very, very different from orcas, isn't it? And we're
So
not used to seeing humpbacks so much in our waters. And that's why you have human injury with whales and boat contacts and injury to the whales as well. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I just wanted to also bring up the entanglement issues that these whales face as well with ropes and nets.
yeah, so indeed, as a big, highly acrobatic whale without biosonar in the way of toothed whales, not only is there a high risk of collision, and I'm going to make sure that I say here as well, because when I talk about these threats of collision and entanglements, what I have learned in all the education efforts is that people seem not to realize that dead whales most often sink. So we will never get an accurate, so I can talk about entanglement and collision. It's like, well, it can't really be a problem on our coast because we never find dead bodies or very rarely find dead bodies. Not understanding, first of all, how vast our beautiful coastline is, but also that dead whales, if they die over deep water, they will be pushed down to feed the ecosystem. So yeah, indeed, the other huge risk of entanglement, our research supports that 50% of the humpbacks of British Columbia, and this is work that we've done with Fisheries and Oceans Canada, have scarring that shows that they have survived an entanglement. So that starts supporting, because you can't find the dead bodies, how serious a risk this is, and how we need to also close the gap with regards to education, resources, and skills with regards to what to do and hugely what not to do when you come upon an entangled whale. And we are fighting, I think many viewers will be aware that we're fighting the countercurrents of these extraordinarily romantic videos that show, insert romantic music, someone jumps in the water, they disentangle a whale, the whale thanks them. I've been involved with disentanglements, yeah, always coordinated with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And that is not to want to suck out the spiritual elements of whales, but it is extraordinarily risky. And most often you are not helping the whale, because if you take away whatever is at the surface, putting yourself at incredible risk, even one of Canada's lead disentanglers died as a result of disentangling a whale, a right whale. So if you remove the line at the surface, now you've taken away the ability to see that the whale is entangled. The whale could still, certainly humpbacks with their huge wing-like pectoral fins, could be completely entangled there. It could be through the mouth. So you can't see that the whale's entangled. Then also, in a professional disentanglement op, that line that's dragging at the surface, whatever it is incredibly important to be able to attach buoys to slow down the whale. Exhaust the whale, then in comes tiny boat, people with helmets, and a stick camera to then determine the best equipment and strategy to reduce stress to the whale. And then the third thing is that line at the surface is also absolutely essential to put on a tracking tag. And there's more and more of those on our coast. And that's where the most important training needs to go as well, is get the locals like Guardian Watchmen all along our coast to have access to a tag like that. But then when somebody reports, and I know we'll talk about where to report to, that when an entanglement is reported, as quickly as possible, the people with the training go out and put on a tag on whatever the whale is dragging behind it, whereby you can find back the whale. And then
We've
you
got
get the expertise to the whale and have the best chances. It's far from perfect, but to close that gap, then we have the best possible chances of that whale getting the attention it needs.
And we have the incident reporting line that viewers can put it into their phones as well. And also, let's talk about a See a Blow, Go Slow. This is really
Yeah.
important, this
So
campaign.
that's the name, dear coastal British Columbians, and especially if you're boaters, please go to seeablowgoslow.org. Please follow us on social media and help amplify our messaging, because now with COVID too, there are more new boaters on the water. Jet skis are now a thing as people look to stay closer to home. And this gap where we thought we were closing it is again expanding again. We need the help, because truly somebody is going to die and I know this sounds dramatic. Somebody's going to die as a result of collision with a humpback. And it is already the case that there has been extreme injury. Like one gentleman who wasn't even driving the boat is now paralyzed as a result of the boat going at high speed in an area of known humpback density. And I think that all we coastal British Columbians know that sense of liberty and whatever else it is on the water, we are less cautious than we even are on the highway. At least on the highway, I think we have the perception like, oh, an elk could suddenly jump out. How I wish we could put humpback crossing signs on the ocean. We can't. So we have this campaign. What's very important too is bundled under See a Blow, Go Slow on the website is it is absolutely boater responsibility to know the law. And there are explicit laws when it comes to marine mammals now. They've been really beefed up since 2018. And that includes that you have to report entanglement, you have to report collision, you have to stay certain distances away depending on species and behavior. You cannot swim with, you cannot touch. Yeah, no kidding. Of course you shouldn't be doing that. So all under See a Blow, Go Slow, and parts of that are, here, some visual aids, Liz. Look at how exciting this is. You can get a whale warning flag. So being at the high end of a fabulous human being and boater, yeah, when whales are in the area, you lift it, warning other people. Yeah, there's whales here. Slow down, reduce your chance of collision, reduce the noise impacts. And then what we also have, we have more than 300 all over the coast is signage. You too can sponsor the signage. And we're so lucky that Canadian Power Squadron and Boating BC is helping us with that as well. But again, in terms of helping, every coastal British Columbian should have the reporting number, the 1-800-465-4336, programmed into their phones. And that is for all marine mammal incidents. And then that then gets dispatched out as appropriate. And even if there isn't a response, what coastal British Columbians are helping with, that they see something of concern that they believe, for example, is a violation of the regulations, then every time you call in, you're creating a data point proving that there's a problem, whereby there's more opportunity for resources for everything from the reporting line to education, enforcement, and legal.
Wonderful. We all have a role to play here to protect these beautiful mammals in our waters here, Jackie. And you've got a treasure trove of information here. Where can people get those whale in the area flags?
Yeah, so if you go to Marine Education and Research Society website and go to How to Help, it's all there. All these pieces, from the signage to relaying data, to informing yourself, all that information is there. And there's also all kinds of wonderful information about our research, for example, with regards to the fishing strategies for these whales.
And you can also sponsor a humpback there.
You can. You can.
Tell us about that.
Emails and other exciting videos even. We're going with little short video bits from me personally. Who wouldn't want that?
And Jackie, you also run a naturalist course up in Campbell River. I believe it's a 3-day course.
Yeah, so indeed, we need the amplification of information, and very much want for whale watching on our coast to have for it to be easy to have access to the latest research, and then conservation messaging, what is worth sharing if you have the joy of having people from all over the world come to our waters. So we typically run 3 marine naturalist courses per year, Tofino, Campbell River, and Port McNeill, our home base.
And what could one expect if they signed up for that course?
An awful lot of some short woman waving her hands a lot and telling inappropriate jokes. My counterpart in education, who is very, very strongly the research voice, Christy McMillan, but it is an absolute binge of 3 days of approaches to education. We're not an interpretive course, but in sharing the depth of knowledge that allows the experiences of seeing our big neighbors to hopefully have greater conservation merit, which of course helps our own species as well.
Wonderful. And you've been offering those courses for quite a while. Even with COVID on, I think you had to cancel one for now, but you're hoping to do another one in the fall.
Yeah, and I don't know how realistic we are with that, indeed. But indeed, in the hopes that 2021 will again offer those opportunities. And if not, what we are doing is we will have specifically presentations on humpbacks, and we have a boating guide that we've developed that is standalone, all the information you need, and that's under Boat Blue. That's also, if you go to How to Help, you'll find it there. But we will be offering boating seminars specifically with regards to marine mammals and the humpback presentation online. So again, if people tune into our social media, that information will be provided there.
Right. Let's talk a little bit more about how the humpbacks do differ from the orcas. That's something that people are more familiar with. But if like their breaching behavior and
so it's their size, the fact, of course, that they're migrating, and they're believed to migrate to get away from the threat of the mammal-eating orca on our coast when they have their young. So they'll go to areas that have little to no water for them. Sorry, little to no food for them. They are acrobatic. They can be oblivious to where boats are because they're not clicking like the orca that can discern even one species of salmon from another from getting that acoustic image back. And then as well, of course, their prey is different and they've got different feeding strategies. So in this journey of learning from humpbacks, we have even learned that some of the whales have a completely new feeding strategy that they apply under certain conditions. So again, this idea of really looking at whales as if they were individuals and understanding that what they're doing, like in the case of orca, you've got the same families of orca going after the same runs of salmon for hundreds of thousands of years. The orca, the humpbacks are individual fishermen and fisherwomen. If they go up to the Central Coast and into Alaska to feed, part of what they do is they will bubble net feed. They will create a net of bubbles, often as a team. They come back year upon year, same members of the same team. And that net is part of the strategy then to corral small fish or krill and be able to get bang for your buck when your huge mouth comes through it. That is a strategy that will not work if there's a lot of current, like on the inside of Vancouver Island. The bubbles would blast away. So most of the humpbacks on the inside of Vancouver Island, for example, are lunge feeders. So diving birds are going after the small schooling fish. They ball up, and then it makes sense to go, no! Take it all in, expel salt water. But this strategy that I'm talking about, this extraordinarily new strategy, is one day in 2011, I saw Conger the humpback hanging with his mouth completely open just at the surface and spinning a little bit. And this huge pectoral fins, the wing-like fins, would go towards his mouth. Like, what the hell are you doing now?
Yeah.
And it has led to the understanding that if the small schooling fish are not in dense concentrations, it's not worth lunging through. But if the birds are still chasing the fish, what if you set a trap? You set a trap, the small schooling fish, juvenile herring, will go into the whale's mouth. You're hardly using any energy and you just close. So it started with 2 that we documented doing it because we have to catch them doing it in 2011. We're now up to at least 22 that have learned from one another. Only 1 has learned from their mom. All the rest have learned from one another. And we're seeing this. So that is also, like, we humans think we know so much. We don't even know how humpbacks find their food. They have new strategies. we need to do better in really perceiving them as individuals, and we sure as heck need to do better in respecting these giant neighbors and knowing how to ensure that threats to them are reduced, and to ourselves.
Well, Jackie, you certainly are a passionate ambassador for the humpbacks. You are the humpback whisperer, may I say.
I think I am a humpback. No, I don't at all. Yeah, I'm built like a humpback, however.
I just had to say the word humpback whale, and you did the whole interview for us. We just have about a minute to go, Jackie, but I just want to remind viewers to go to mers.org. But you also do an amazing blog. You're also known as the Marine Detective, and you have incredible blogs that you put out with amazing photography. And you're also a very, very good writer. So I'd encourage viewers to go there and sign up for your blog as well. And the Naturalist course and all the other resources that you have on there. So we can learn to coexist better with these beautiful giants, because we certainly don't want them to be leaving our waters again for anything that we're doing as humans. Any closing thoughts from you just before we wrap up today, Jackie?
Thank you again so much for the opportunity, Liz. And please, folks, indeed, help us spread the education that will benefit not just the whales, but everything within this remarkable ecosystem. And let's face it, if the ocean and its life is okay, we humans are okay.
That's the barometer for sure. And I just want to close today, Jackie, with a quote that you put on your blog for Canada Day. I just thought it was really beautiful. I'm just going to quote you here. May we celebrate all that is wild, good, and free. May we truly know the knowledge of it all. And may we be the neighbors and stewards who are as open-hearted as this land is large. Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you for your help with the humpbacks, and we'll try and also do our part here to protect these beautiful mammals on our coast. All the best to you. Be safe on the water. And Jackie, if you see a blow, go slow.
I promise.
Okay. And thank you for joining us today. And we wish you all the best on the coast and on the water this summer. And we hope that you've learned some new and exciting things about these humpbacks in our waters. We'll look for you on our next episode. Thanks for joining us.